Welcome back to Relative Roads. This episode is with my good friend Mark. I met Mark as one of the salesmen working alongside my company. We had to rendezvous from time to time, and I'd give him, his deliveries and whatnot. During that time, we created a friendship, and he took some interest in the podcast, and we've been kind of letting that idea simmer for a while, and finally, Mark had taken me out to Capital Floats. It's a holistic healing type center. Basically, it's isolation tanks. You've heard of these float tanks, deprivation tanks on Joe Rogan's podcast. But here in Sacramento, we finally have a magnificent place to go. I have gone twice now. Both times have changed a lot of things for the better. I can honestly say that they really did more than I can speak to or articulate just yet. But we did this podcast right after a float. Myself and Mark had had a session, and then Ryan, the owner of Capital Floats, joined us for the podcast, and that's what this conversation is. I know how amateur I am. And some of the ways I get excitable on audio, I have to apologize. I'm just excitable and out of control sometimes. But I felt like we made a great connection. A lot of really great information was shared. A lot of positivity in the room. Amazing energy. And I'm going to try and be around these folks as often as possible. But just some things about Capital Floats. They have 3 different types of memberships. There's 1 float a month for $49, 2 floats a month for $89, 52 floats a year for a set price. You don't really want to hear that just yet, but you definitely should at least do 1 float a month. And if you mention that you heard about this in the podcast, I don't know what they'll do, but he said that they might, give you a hug or something. But either way, you're going to thank yourself for going and doing this. Let's see. Some of the benefits of a membership: all unused floats roll over. Additional floats are membership rate. Friends and family float at your membership rate. Discounts on extended floats. In-center items. They've got a bunch of stuff like teas and lotions and CBD material that you can kind of pick up for yourself if you wanted. Infrared sauna sessions are always $15. Somadome sessions are always $10. Somadome, I believe, is this contraption that's like a space chair, and they put a dome over your head that plays like meditational music. There's lighting. It really looks amazing. And I'm sure it is. And if I could have one in my house, I probably would. Haven't done that yet, but they do have one. You get a free birthday float. Happy birthday. Free kombucha. They've got it on a keg. It is delicious. I mean, after you get out of the float, you've had a nice hot shower, and you're nice and relaxed. You can sit there and have a glass of kombucha. Sorry. It's worth it. Oh my God, it's so good. Access to events and workshops. And I don't know what any of those are just yet, but I aim to do at least 1 float a month if I can work it in, Sadly, this stuff should be so normal that, it's like part of insurance programs. Everybody should have a gym membership and like a float tank membership for their job. Damn, that's a good job. Some of the benefits you may not know, but I'll let you know right now. Okay, for your mind: stress relief, improves sleep, eliminates fatigue and jet lag. I have a ton of jet lag. No, I don't. Creates mental clarity. Yes, that's for damn sure. Reduces anxiety. Haven't felt better since. Energizes, rejuvenates. It's not just the tank itself. It's really about the isolation, cutting yourself off from all that noise. And it's almost like your brain analyzes everything that you perceive. Your brain is processing, and if you can allow your brain to sort of put a black screen on and not witness any new information, and then start to be able to process the information it already has, it's clarity, basically. So it's kind of like a filing system, or a way to file your workload, your information. It's that good. Body relaxes muscles and joints, lowers blood pressure, improves posture, circulation, relieves back pain, neck pain, aids recovery from injury, reduces inflammation. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Anyhow, I'll shut up. I'll let this podcast kind of give you my experience. I do go through a really interesting transition in that isolated scenario. Ryan is actually very inspiring. Young entrepreneur, great story about what got him here, and the fact that he wasn't that kind of guy as far as he was concerned in terms of starting a business, and an amazing story. I think you're going to love it. One more apology. The audio isn't the greatest, but if you can withstand the nuances of failure, if you can put up with that for just long enough to get the content, I think you'll like it. Without further ado, Mark and Ryan. I'm just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same. And now it's time for another episode of Relative Road. Mark, I can't thank you enough for taking me to the float tank again. And like I was telling you, I really, really needed to do it because I've been watching a lot about the worst part of things. Because I kind of thought, I'm subject to all that noise and the way I process it. And it got to the point where I'm like irritable. And like there are other things too, but you can't, it's hard to like sift through all your shit when you're in it.
100%.
Okay. So, I can't thank you enough, man. Like,
dude, glad you went.
Mind blowing.
Mark's a bridge to all the floating, to all the journey you've been on this last year. It's like
crazy.
It was starting with yourself, and now it's like bringing all these other people into it.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's rad.
Wish I could do it every day.
Do you really?
100%.
Are you okay running around doing the normal routine as well? Or do you feel like when you're far away from the tank that it's just too much?
No, everything's cool still and, effective. What I find is like it's the temperament of like staying cool with your family, when like just life things happen that if you haven't taken the time to like meditate and like get some time to yourself, then you kind of don't realize that you need to take a step back and actually breathe before you speak. And you have a lot of times where you have these moments, like I find it more with my kids because they're at a younger age and that they definitely they test your patience. And I feel like if you're not able to, like I always tell them, I'm like, we're not a remote control. Like kids growing up these days, it's just completely different from when we were kids because they could turn on the TV, they could throw on Netflix, and they could watch Disney Plus, and they could watch all these things like listen to Pandora or Spotify and listen to the exact song they want to listen to. Where, if we wanted to watch something, we had to wait a week. We had to listen to the radio to hear the song we wanted to listen to, or go buy the tape or the album, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I always tell them, like, we're not a remote control. You need to give us time to react. And sometimes you don't give yourself time to react, and you just react without, like, really kind of soaking it in. And, like, so that's something that, floating has really taught me is through meditation, I could go back to my breath and be a better person, react to things differently, and things evolve a lot better that way.
Yeah.
I've found,
Yeah.
especially with my kids. I mean, they're the center of my world. So if things aren't cool with them and my wife, then that affects everything else around me.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, Mark's probably spent the most time of any person, arguably in Sacramento, in a float tank. But I'm curious on, now that your frequency is a little less, have you found like a sweet spot of, you were floating every day? Like now it's down to a couple times a week maybe?
Like at least once.
Okay.
And if I go 2 weeks, like I'm definitely missing it big time.
What's the number that you found has been like the most? Was it every day, or was it 3 times a week? Or what's the most effective dose, I guess you could say, that you found for yourself?
I loved going, 5 or 6 times a week. It was a privilege to be able to do something like that. What it taught me was, and when I'm in a stressful environment or when I just need to, be by myself, you don't always have that float tank to go into, so like, I just try to go take a few deep breaths, and get all that done. But I think 1 time a week is really satisfying. And I think if you let yourself go a couple weeks, getting back in after 2 weeks, you really want it. But it also seems to be a lot more effective. Taking advantage of it every day is one thing, and it definitely gets you into this more like positive, more energetic mindset, and it definitely helps with like all the pains, from, the magnesium in the water and everything. But mentally, I think it's good to give yourself a little bit of a break, a week, and even like 2 weeks. I haven't tried like going 3 weeks yet because I just feel like I need it to like, just for my sanity, with a 6-year and an 8-year-old kid at home.
Yeah.
Or 2 kids, I should say.
It sucks being short with your kids because you feel guilty.
Right.
And, like, you kind of hate yourself a little bit. And then, like you said, you just don't have the capacity to stop and think sometimes.
Right.
It just, like, comes out. And then before you know it, you're apologizing to your kid. Like, hey, man, I'm an asshole sometimes. I didn't mean to be that way. Let's do something. But the breaks, I don't know, it's like going to the gym. If you don't go to the gym, you don't realize how negative that is to your body until you're without for like a week or so.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit, man, I'm stiffening up. And then your body's in pain, and then you learn to live with pain, and then people try to mask over it with whatever they're addicted to.
100%.
And then without the break, that's all you're doing is just like eating your own tail and wondering why does it fucking hurt all the time? Yeah.
Also it's like it's like going to the gym. It's like everything you're doing to it. It's like if you're getting in the car to go and it's getting there and it's like having that little bit of conversation with the the facilitator there, and then kind of opening up in the beginning, knowing that you're going to go on and be by yourself for, an hour. And then it's, taking the shower and putting the earplugs in and getting yourself ready to like go in there and just release whatever tension or whatever you have going on in your life. Because I slowly started realizing after like the first couple weeks of floating like 4, 5, 6 times a week, after 2 weeks, I'm like, am I meditating? Like, what am I doing in here? And so like, I kind of look at it now as like every time I go in the float tank, like I go in, I'm familiar with the way the water makes me feel. I know I'm like about to reach this like super, this is comfort zone, and I could turn the light off and I could just go back and take like this deep breath and be in the, just in this moment of, now this is my time. Now I'm here by myself, and the only thing getting in my way is me and my thoughts. So like counting my, during my breaths, like whether it's a slow count or a longer count, or, doubling up to like a beat that's, on the track that, when you're floating, and then just kind of getting, the best floats are like when you get that deep breath in, and then like you just like we were talking about earlier. You hold a lot of your stress in your belly, and when you can release that stress by just breathing,
or just
it's like an amazing tool.
That's what I was saying when I got into this whole like Tai Chi thing. Like whatever information I've collected that's along that wavelength kind of came into the picture, and then like I just kind of let the information influence my body, and then I started to move my body in the water, and then the sound of the water was welcomed, and so like I just accepted this moment, and then like all these revelations happen, like, oh, so like you can physically experience your energy, right? Harness your chi. You can physically experience it. Then you start to realize that memories are stored not just in your mind, they're in your fucking body.
Totally.
And I started feeling where I keep certain thoughts, you know, for the most part. And then I just came to like realizing I have not focused on my body at all. So I put my hands, you know, in places and just felt my body. And I was like, I have all my limbs. I have my legs, my feet, my knees, everything, my upper body. And it got to like my heart. Certain thoughts would come. My son came into my mind. My relationship with my woman came into my mind. And then at some point, my body floated towards the edge of the tub. And I felt the edges of the tub, and the music got close, and it changed. So there was this transitional moment when things collided. My body moving into the tub, the noise. Then it brought me into another space, and it was like a room that was gold plated is where I kept all the best, like in the mines, you find the best elements deep in the mines, the crystallized like information. It's literally a crystal, right? And the way I translated this in my head was, I'm in that deep part of me where I keep all these crystallized ideas about me. And like, they mean something to me. The memories they're like where I go. And I live with those. And like, started to kind of actualize what was happening. That's when I kind of, you know, I took a break from the moment and was going backwards. And I was like, what are we doing here? I was like, oh, okay, so what do you want to think about? And I would move my hands to another part of my body, and I'd come across other thoughts, like work. How do I feel about work? What is it that can improve? So on and so forth. So it turned into this, like, me moment. And it was, like, it rocked my world. And so from that point on, it was like, okay, I got this idea. I had other creativity ideas. I'm like, I want to do a commercial. I want to do a video commercial. I want to do an audio commercial. This is what I want to portray in that art form. And I had this idea I reenacted coming into consciousness in my body as if it was like a scene in a movie where somebody is possessing another body, but they're waking up into consciousness. And so like from a deep state of unconscious. And like I pretended that this was the first time I ever saw my hands, and I was like, what would that feel like if I woke up in this body and all of a sudden this is the body I have now, and like I accept it for what it is. And I started reenacting, like pulling my hands out towards my face, and of course like the movies have an influence, and so like I'm realizing that, but whatever, we're gonna let it go. And so I started moving my hands, and then I looked down, and I'm like looking at my what I can see other parts of my body, I start moving it. And then it was just this, it was almost undescribable. It just fucking took over, and then I didn't have any negative feeling. I think that's what it was too, is like, I normally have something I'm hanging on to. Something to be angry about, something to be frustrated with, something to be disappointed in. I was hanging on to that stuff. I carried it around like a fucking bag. Then I came back to it, and I'm like, oh man, that's all by choice. And this is information I've already had. It's like...
This reminds me of like, you bring up two things that I think the tank is doing. First, it's like, it's a wash away process. Take away the metaphors of the water and everything, but it's like all that weight. You get in the tank, it's just going to be cut off every single time you're going to get out. But like what you're talking about is literally, it's like the merging of the conscious with the subconscious. So you got into the tank. And this is what I love about it. It's like you get in there, we all got our kind of monkey mind going. When we get in there, we're in the world, we're hyper in the head.
Yeah.
Get in the tank, and the tank's just this like tool, this vehicle to start embodying ourselves, start accessing the things that are actually impacting us moment to moment, that we just have no awareness to.
Yeah.
And it's meditation can do it, but the float tank's just this like kind of hyperdrive to go into it.
Oh, please, can I interject some other things?
Yes.
Because you're bringing up memories from that experience. There were times when I would command my body to take a stance in the water, and I'm like, straighten out. And so I straighten out, and it shot me. It was like, I imagine it's what it would feel like if I was shot out of a cannon. It was just pressure coming down. I could feel the pressure go all the way through to my feet. And I think it was just me physically like going this way in the water, but it intensified. And I knew what was happening consciously, but I also surrendered to what was happening physically or mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It was like, I'm command of this ship. It was kind of like lucid dreaming in a sense.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. But to that point, when I shot out of a cannon, I couldn't, I don't know, I still don't know how to describe it, but the idea of having that much presence in this body, that's never a thought. I never think about being in this body like that. And that's how I think high performance athletes feel a lot of the times, like they're being shot out of a cannon. It's got to be addictive in some ways.
100%. It's totally. I mean, it's just like you're getting an instant, similar to a psychedelic tool or anything, like this instant new form of perspective.
Yeah.
Things that we take for granted, things that are your body that you have in every moment.
Yeah.
And now you're like super hyper aware to it.
Yeah, I was highly conscious of my stress.
Where did you carry it? Where did you
in
feel
my gut.
In your gut.
It's here. It's all here, and like I ignore it because I know what it represents. A lot like any problem you have, you project that onto things.
So
when someone
really
reflects,
good at that.
Yeah, when somebody reflects a problem you have with yourself, it annoys you. Seemingly like that's what the reaction is, and then that's where you find the real maturity is. I can stop there and start here, and that is all the choice. That doesn't have to take me away to some other fucked up situation.
Yes.
It doesn't have to. But like the embodying of your, when you're in your energy and you understand who you are as a conductor of your reality, like when you can feel the sense of that, you like take command of a ship, but it's a lot of responsibility. Like you want to touch the steering wheel, but you're like, I don't want to be in trouble for breaking anything. So, but when you take the steering wheel and you're steering this ship, you're like, I can do anything.
Yeah.
I can do any motherfucking thing. And like most empowering feeling ever.
It's funny, we talk and we go directly into this conversation with maybe people that are listening to this like going, what the fuck is floating? And like, what are these guys even talking about?
You know what? Now that you said that, to me, like when I got out, I'm like, this isn't a float tank. It's an isolation chamber. This is what happens. The water just happens to be like a really great tool.
It's a 100%. It's a catalyst to drop into. I mean, mixing that with the salt, and it's just on that level. It's like a current for your body. It's like a charge that gets to take place.
It makes me think about that scene in The Matrix when he's in the fluid.
The cocoon.
Like, when I saw that, I'm like, I don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with that. Because he's living, it's just not in that body.
The more I go on with life, like Matrix and some of these other movies are just fucking nailing it.
Yeah.
Like across the board in all these metaphoric ways, but the metaphor real, whatever.
Yeah.
But like totally, it's like these movies are onto something.
How many times a week do you go, or do you float?
I go in super seasonal. Like coming on here, I haven't been in a month.
So you're just but you're just enjoying life, and you're
totally. And I have my daily practices of meditation and breath work and things that I'll do. Sauna. Like I haven't been in. Like I told you guys, I just got a tattoo, so I haven't gotten in the float tank. And then I'll go where I'm, 2 to 3 times a week. When I really catch it is when I don't want to get in, and that's when I'm like really got to get honest with myself that's when I have to get in. Like when it's when I'm starting to make the excuses that of like, I'm good, I'm gonna do this instead, or no, it's not really calling me. Like I know when I'm bullshitting myself. Yeah, that's when it's like, okay, it's time to get into the tank for a little while.
Yeah, amazing.
So it varies for me. It's very seasonal into how often I go.
So when I want to understand how you got from experiencing this to now facilitating this for others. Like, what was that process, and how did you get to where you're at now?
So it was a long line of synchronistic events that I don't take lightly and I don't take as coincidences. So it's a long story. Sure. I'll try and give like the bullet gist of it, but it's a story that means a lot to me, and it's very much of like why we're here. I was in a really bad accident in Thailand, in the hospital for weeks out there. Kind of had the classic, like what am I waiting for in life? Let's go. I had an awesome job before, got out, was in the hospital, came back to the States, got on with some recovery process. And that's when that kind of aligned with the float tank. I was like, I'm going to start floating. I lived in San Francisco. I started floating. And it was my second float, and I was sitting in a waiting room. Shout out Float Matrix, they're not there anymore, but it was a place in San Francisco, similar to a waiting room maybe Capital Floats has. And I just was sitting at the front desk. This whole world was kind of new to me of like, what is this? People come into these like kind of chambers and they get in, and it's like this very kind of like futuristic thing to me, kind of Matrix, like what, everyone's just like super internal process. I remember sitting there and having this just like, I want to be amongst this all the time. Like I want to sit, similar to the thing that I love is when people say they go to Capital Floats and they walk in the door and it's just this like, like the weight comes off, the smells are good. It's just different than the regular default world we're in a lot. That's how Matrix was for me. And I sat there getting ready to go into my float, and I was still just in awe that this world existed that I wasn't really aware to. And I call it a whisper. To me, it was very clear of that. And it was like, I just was thinking, it's like, I want to be in this world all the time. And it was literally just this like, whoosh, that came over me. And it was like, well, then go create it. Like it was, and that wasn't like it had some entrepreneurial spirit in me, but it wasn't a normal thing for me. And I remember kind of like, oh my God, like I can just make a room like this and just bring people to, like this can be a thing. Yeah. Long story short, I kind of sat with that. I didn't really tell anyone. And fast forward a year and a half later, there were some other radical events in my life that took place. One part, the other big piece to that was I went down to Peru and worked with ayahuasca down there the first time that I was kind of like dove into that world, did a lot of internal work. And when I went down there, I thought I was going to have the epiphany of like, quit your job, go start the float center, here you go. And I remember I was down there for weeks, and it was very early in the process. It was just basically like, went in a ceremony, and it was basically just let that go right now. Don't worry about that at all about your job. We got other work to do. You need to get your system in place. Nice. So I did that work, let go of the float center, came back, got a big promotion at my job, got mentored by some great people within the company. And I just I knew the float center was coming, but I trusted. It was like full trust into like, this time will come of when you need to go start your float center, or when this will be. I didn't know it was going to be in Sacramento. I didn't know any of this. And then I remember in July of 2014, I woke up one morning and it was, don't know why, it was just, today's the day. And I started that process from, it took me about 5 months to write the business plan, started researching, doing everything, decided on Sacramento kind of from afar. Grew up in Rockland and had kind of classic hater of Sacramento when I was 18. I'm out of here. I'm never moving back to this town. Yada, yada, yada. Had to look myself in the mirror and be like, there's a lot of cool shit going on up there. You can join this awesome movement and bring something that's not existing in Sacramento. There's no floating up here. So that ultimately decided on Sacramento. Came up here, moved up December 2014, then went on the quit my job, basically jumped off the cliff, didn't have
scary,
no funding, no nothing, and just like, I'm starting a float center, here we go. Moved up here to start engaging with investors, doing the whole thing. Fast forward February 2016, we opened our doors February 20th, 2016, which is about 11 days is our 4-year anniversary from the day we're doing this. So that was to your question of how it happened. Yeah, I took action with it, but it was very much guided, I'm very, very clear on that it just kind of got out of my own way, and it was like, whether you want to say I was chosen, I don't do this like anything was special about it. It was just like, it was so clear, so deep in my gut that it's like, you have to do this.
How much of that do you attribute to the floating process?
It's huge.
If you didn't have the time to think deeply about it, do you think you would have pulled the trigger?
I don't know any different. It was, just a part of the process.
Yeah.
But it was so, like, to have a float, I knew what the power of the float tank was, and I saw it, and it was kind of this, even you got to recognize, like 5-6 years ago when I set out to do this, floating wasn't what floating is now. It's still a new it's still different, it's unique, but it was like, there was nothing in Sacramento. Yeah. If you were going in San Francisco, you were going in Float Matrix down in a basement with 3 coffin-like chambers in one room. Like, it's not these commercial centers that you see today. But I just knew, I was like, where we're going societally, like, I'm not saying floating's the answer, but it's one thing that we need in this world. Yeah. We need these tools in these urban environments where we're hyper-stimulated, we're on the go all the time. Like, we have to start getting some reset buttons into our system. Yeah. And I was fully in trust that, okay, floating is a piece to this puzzle. Yeah. And it needs to be in play. And so coming up here, floating was a huge, your question. I just knew the power of it myself. Yeah. And I know I'm not very different than anyone else, so it's going to do that for other people as well.
It's just amazing to listen to people's stories, especially people who are moving forward. It's amazing to hear about the moment that they decided to change their perspective about themselves. Like, initially, like, I don't believe that anymore. I'm going to make a decision and trust my gut, basically.
Totally.
And, like, without getting too overly spiritual, but it's kind of like praying with your existence. You know what I mean? Because you already know it's there. It's just waiting for you, and that becomes your language.
Totally.
Because you're living in that space. You're like, well, we're gonna have a big house because I already bought it in my head. So we're just gonna move the money, and it'll take us there.
Yeah.
Like, and then the importance of currency. And not just the monetary currency, but just you, like the vibrations that you kind of set up in your relationships, that's your currency. And then, like, when you kind of tune in with that, you start to realize that those decisions, if you can get in line with those types of decisions in all the aspects of your life, your imagination kind of runs the show, because you're like living in the space that you sort of are preaching to yourself.
It's like this. That's like with the float center. It's like, for me, it was so deep. I had no other choice. Yeah. Like something that means so much. There's nothing that can get in the way of that. Yeah. And I think it's rare to, like, I'm grateful I had that early. There's been a lot of other things in life that I think I'm into, and then kind of falls off. But to your point, like, it's so deep that it's just like, it's happening. And
it happens at different times for different people.
Totally.
And I think what's funny is when people have a problem with the fact that they're getting older, I've translated as, well, you're just not happy with what you're doing. It's not that you mind getting older, like, you're just not taking care of business.
I like that.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, I think let me change that. I don't hate hearing that. It's just, I wish people understood what they were saying. It's like, no, you don't hate getting older. You don't like looking back at what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Like, you can do something, but just stop and think. If you could just stop and think, you could get out of your own way, and, like, there's a lot of people teaching that and preaching that, but I don't know, man, when you live it, you can't help it. You can't help but just be it and say what is there, because other people are catching on.
Totally. The proof's in the pudding. Like, it's like, you could see who's walking that, who's preaching that.
Yeah.
It's like the action that comes from that is, like, very, like, who's actually embodying, the life that they want to live. And
let me ask you a question. Did you experience like opposition after you started hitting bigger milestones? And
what do you mean by
opposition? So like, did it feel like people were against your success in some way? Does it come across that way? Like people don't want you to succeed? And I'm sort of still talking about like when you reflect something that other people aren't okay with.
I think majority are very excited.
Yeah.
I have felt some, I don't want to say opposition, but there's, yes, it gets reflected back that maybe people are, I think people compare, so they compare, it's like, well, I want that. Mm-hmm. Like, so then they maybe project onto some anger or frustration or whatever it is of like, I want to get to that. And I do that with other people that I admire,
sure.
But it's like, we only see the end product. We don't see the shit that went into the process. Yeah. It's like, everyone wants to be like, the quote that I love that I really got during this process is like, how many years did it take you to become an overnight star? Like that's,
right.
We see all these people that have created amazing lives and we don't know the fucking muck that they went through day after day. And, I'm not saying, I'm not in some like special category. I have, I've definitely felt some, there's a little, people, I think that's for every person deals with that in our lives. Like you get that comparison, but the hard shit we rarely share in the world. We always sees like the fruits of everything that we do. So
I think the reason why I ask is the more I give in to my desire to, I don't know, create my own currency, I guess. I have habits of looking back at things and sort of getting toiled around in muck. You know what I mean? Where like, I'll be going down a path and then I'll see something shiny and I'll come over here and I'll be like, what's going on in here? And then I'll get into some sort of drama, for lack of a better way to put it. And then I'll get back in the road. But I have this undying habit of veering off. And I think that's one of the challenges that I'm trying to get out of this is like to hear what's your technique, like when you're in your research, for instance, with the float tanks and the business and like how did that research look? What did you do? Did you go to certain places? Did you read certain books?
I love that question because there's first from like a macro perspective, I always think like if we're struggling to like get tasks done, we need to like zoom in to like the micro and be like, what can I do right now? And I always say like we all have the answer of what to do. Like it's like there's no blueprint to like how to go start a business. There's no blueprint. It's like whatever you think you should do, go do that.
Yeah.
And then it might be that you veer off for a while, and that's what you need to learn is like I need to veer off, and then you're going to start to learn the new pattern of like next time you're not going to veer as far off, and then you're going to be like no, but that's like essential.
Yeah.
That is you have to go through that.
Gotcha.
And so it's to that point. It's like I always just say just do what's right there. Yeah. Do the next thing that you need to do. And the other, I don't want to say we, I'll speak for myself. I overthink everything. Like I got caught, what I learned in my process is I got caught in the research phase and I was bypassing actually doing the shit I needed to do.
I love
like
that.
I spent so long writing the best business plan, thinking that was like my external validation that if I show everyone this business plan, they're going to think I know what I'm doing. In reality, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I'd never done it. So but that was kind of my insecurity. Yeah. But I spent so many months, extra, I don't even mean that. I won't take that word back. But I spent a long time creating that business plan that when I look back on it, it's like I was just insecure to actually go sit with an investor and say, hey, like I'm learning, I'm new, I'm gonna do this. I would love to have you a part of this. I'm going to learn along the way. You can believe in me that I'm going to get and see this through. I was scared to have that conversation. I wanted the business plan to be that conversation. So I would say, a lot of research, thinking about it, talking about it, if that is continuously happening, you're kind of like, it's usually a clear sign that there's a little insecurity.
Yeah.
You're slowing yourself down.
Totally. And it's in the big picture, when you really can get that perspective, it's like, oh, but go to work on the insecurity. Am I scared to get told no? Yeah, I was scared to get told no. I was scared to get someone to tell me, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're someone, I don't believe in you. Those were the words that would crush me. But I needed to hear those. That was like part of the process.
Sure. Can't be scared of it.
Totally. But I was going to out-research anyone. And there was, I look back on my business plan, and it's still an essential part. It's been a piece that's helped open other float centers, but it's like, business plan doesn't open a business.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and relate to that process, because just doing production of the podcast, like I'll go into my closet or my bathroom to record like the intro to the next episode, and I find myself just releasing whatever junk is floating around, and I'll like add my 2 cents about politics. I'll say what I think people are doing wrong, and I'll have all my opinions, and I'll record it without really understanding if I'm going to publish this or what. I don't know. But every time I go back and listen to it, I just feel better that I got it out and that it's not a part of the podcast. So I started to realize, this is just an exercise to get to that other creative measure. And so when you speak of that sounds familiar. You know what I mean? Like you make the decision to do it. You don't know what's going to happen. Yes. You don't know how it's going to go. You don't know what the fuck you're going to say, but you just do it. And then you come back and you feel what you feel.
Yeah.
And then you assess and then reapproach or, do it again, basically.
100%.
Rinse and repeat kind of thing.
That's it. Because you knew that was how you had to do it. You didn't quite know why.
Yeah.
And then you start to do it. Now you're learning, this is maybe aiding in the podcast, because now I got that shit out and I can get more to what I want to talk to in the podcast. Yeah.
And then specifically, broadcasting whatever's in my mind is the vulnerability is hard to sit with sometimes, because I'm like everybody else, I'm my own worst critic, but like that's just a thing I say, you know what I mean? And so like when I turn and look, I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm worst critic. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, who gives a shit? This is my channel, and if you like it, cool, but otherwise, like, it's hard to like let go sometimes.
It's 100%. Like
that's the float tank in 100% is letting go. Yeah. And the more you can let go, the more you can understand who you really are, and the more that you can understand that you can do the shit that you want to get done. Because once you let go of everything, like nothing can stand in your fucking way.
Mm-hmm. It's like a 100%. Mental cramp or something, and you have to find a way to stretch. Because if you don't stretch, like you'll tear a muscle or some shit.
And you talked about like that. We're so quick to like judge ourselves so harshly, and it serves nothing. It's to your point of like it slows you down. Like the judgment it's good for. I excuse it for reflection. No, I'm reflecting. It's like, no, judgment's not reflection. Judgment is judgment that is not serving. Like it's hypercritical.
I think that the being critical is important. I think it's mitigating your judgment because, like everything, it exists. It's just how you use it, right? So I think when you are reflecting or criticizing your efforts, you're just analyzing the mistakes.
That's well said. It's like adding in the usually shame, guilt, all those other things come in with judgment in itself is just judgment.
Yeah.
But or being critical or objective, but adding in all the I tend to be the guilt.
Yeah, all the dangerous ideas.
Super slow for me. It slows everything down.
And that when when you're like hyper focused on how you think, you start to sort of see underneath the fabric of most other things like racism. It's like it's there, but if you're a hateful, angry fucking person, that's when it's a problem. But the truth is, we all look at each other and we don't. All we have is what we know. And this is what I know.
100%.
And that's where I put you. I'm sorry if it's not where you want to be, but, prove me wrong. And I'll do my part in just being the best representative of me. And then it's like an exchange. And then when you meet people you're like-minded with, I trust you, man. You know, I feel your energy. I feel safe. We can do this. You know what I mean? And that's your bloodline in your success, I guess. That's kind of the thought that has come to me. It's like, there's like a building block, and it's like, well, how do you sustain that? Because success, whatever that is, can be intimidating. You're like, all that really means is I need to be more responsible.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I'm having a hard time being responsible now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So like, when you kind of come around with that and you kind of accept it, it's just easier to make relationships a priority. It's like, oh yeah, well, when I'm falling apart, they'll be there to help me figure out what the hell's going on, you know?
So, and you start to build that network. You can like lean on people.
Yes.
Like half the times, like
Yes.
it's like I always feel like you build your network of basically like, for this, the vision that comes to me is like bowling with like the bumper lanes.
Yeah.
Is like how kind of, I'm always going to have my patterns where I slip or I do this. Like, do I have the network around me? It's kind of an extension of me.
Yeah.
That's just keeping me
Yes,
bumpered in.
Yeah.
That I never get too far out. I never get here
Yeah.
in my toxic ways. And it's just like
Yeah.
funneling me towards whatever my purpose or my drive is.
You could still get a strike, and you'll never get a gutter ball.
100%. 100%. I like that.
Yeah, that's really good.
You got the bumpers. You can get a strike,
Yeah.
and you'll never ever get a gutter ball.
So everybody's just fucking throw it, bro.
Yeah,
So-
throw it. See what happens.
Exactly. Bang it against those bumpers. Like, shoot it. Can you hit the bumper 5 times? Just hit this, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
amazing.
That's true community right there.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's great to know how Sacramento is, speaking on Sacramento, how there's been so many different wellness, centers opening up in different capacities, with you guys at Capitol Floats and, Asha Bathhouse, and Corey, she sold, but still created this amazing thing, and the kids at Fitsom are just doing a great job, and all the different yoga studios popping up. It's like people, for some reason, it just feels like this town wants to be feel good. They want people to be able to feel good and create this vibe of we want people to be healthy here.
Totally. I mean, you really get that we're in this together.
Yeah.
And that's, I get my scarcity mindset. It's about me, or I have my, but things that it's, I get focused on myself, but really getting clear, we're building this whole kind of, let's grow this tribe. Let's grow everyone more. Yeah, we're only as good as our last man.
Yeah.
And
see, and on that note, right, I've sort of been obsessing with homelessness and death, I guess, to be specific. And I can feel how it changes my mood, but it almost feels like a necessary evil to look at it.
Totally.
Because it's ignoring it's not really working. It's it's growing. The problem is growing.
Yes.
And I live here. My decisions could take me there. It's not like I'm perfect. I can get hit by a car. Whatever the hell can happen to me. Mm-hmm. So it's when I see what that's reflecting, it's me, it's my neighbor, it's my kids, it's my parents. And so I start to wonder, what is the best option to help that get better? For me personally. And the answer I have right now is just work on me. Just work on me. And the better I get, the better opportunity people around me can have. The better, and that just grows and grows, and it seeps into the community. And then this whole effort to sort of holistically bring us back to one, it seems important because the only real currency love is probably the best policy. Right? We can all agree, love is the best policy. Most people living don't want to die. Mm-hmm. Most people, and so love is the best policy. Okay, so now I understand that. Now what do I do? Is it something physically? I go give my shit away? You start kind of rummaging through what you think should happen, and then, like I said, I think the real answer is work. Start here and then work your way out.
Totally, it's a crazy paradox, and it's something it's not that I grapple with it a lot, but Jordan Peterson always says, get your room clean, make sure your room's clean before you're, trying to clean house. Yeah. Something, and so many sages of the past have said something similar, but it is this paradox. I've sometimes neglected myself because I need to do more. Like that's always kind of my thing, is I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, I need to do more but then I neglect myself, and I show up in these, maybe it's just a conversation, maybe it's with a different ideology that I'm discussing. I'm not present in that conversation. So then I become angry, and then I just create more divide. And it's just those micro things. Or maybe I get a little lazy, and then I'm not doing the projects that I care about. Similar to like you're stepping into yours, like you took action, you're starting a podcast.
Yeah.
You're bringing people together to have conversation. It's like as we go, it's this weird, as we go more internal, it really starts to ripple into the world. And it's like, it's a mind fuck for me still a lot, because I do more. And then I feel selfish for going internal, but it's like, if I'm really actually like loving myself, like not self-love or not selfishness, but true self-love, it will ripple. Like what I actually care about will come out in a much more like inclusive, impactful way.
Yeah.
Dude, I think with the first podcast I listened to, you know, with you, and I believe it was your brother-in-law, and you talked about creating this community, and the community starts with yourself. And if you're obtaining this great community, it will touch the next person, you know, next to you, and then another person, and it's that ripple effect where like next thing you know, you've created this community around you. And that's when shit really starts happening, is like people feel, you know, you're in a group of people and they feel like this sense of community, and it ripples out. You know, you talk about it a lot with like religion and what people believe, and, you know, whether or not you want to believe in any type of religion, but still like knowing that like one person could say something that can affect hundreds of other people. And, you know, it's kind of really starts there. So like internally, you know, your sound, and you're like creating this community around you. Like, of course we're going to affect other people.
So, I mean, Mark, you're a prime example of this.
Yes.
You start. I mean,
Hell yes.
Everyone listening, Mark is our most floated person. I mentioned that, but he had the year membership in Unlimited. So that was ultimately a total self thing. Like that was for you. You did that. But what has come of that? You have brought me into so many more circles. I've seen your ripple into the community, into the, you know, hospitality, beverage industry. Like so many more people are opening up to ideas now, because you're just, the proof's in the pudding. They're seeing you. They're seeing the light that's coming off of you. Us having this conversation right now. You starting this podcast. Like you doing you has caused so much impact in the community.
And I hope what we can do is create more of it by you know, getting like-minded people sitting in a room and talking about it, and hopefully people out there listening like realizing like that we can all do something to help each other out.
Totally.
There's no turning back. Yeah. I've already decided there's no turning back. This shit gets a little edgy sometimes. Like literally like a high wire act, you know, and you're looking down like, well, fuck.
Yeah, it can get messy sometimes.
Yes.
It could get like,
yeah, but you know, and kind of going back to the first thing we talked about with our kids, because I deeply relate. I don't want to feel that way about myself. And the avenue of isolation as a method of healing has become so like important, profoundly important, that I don't know how not to live without it.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh, I know what you mean.
For whatever reason, like, look, and like you said, Mark, it creates such a like consistent connection, and it's not like faulty. You know what I mean? Like some people have faulty wires and shit's just hanging out, and you're like, I don't know if that's gonna work out, and then they fucking snap, and you're like, bye, good luck, goodbye. And then Mark, every time you hear him, like I use this other like whiteboard of what I think he means, and then I match it up, and then I wait till the next interaction. Then it starts to slowly just become, it's just Mark. I don't need all that noise now. And like, do you know what I mean? Like in order to like protect myself, that's probably what I do. It's like match up the information. You're in sales. That intimidates me. It's like, you trying to get over on me. You know what I mean? Like there's an old story that haunts me, and like that's the only real ghost happening is my own bullshit. And so, you know, to what he said, like just being who you are. And like as far as expanding this or bringing it more about, like just hang out. Let's just fucking hang out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like we can do things deliberately, or or we can just fall into something. Because I think either way, like we're alive. Something's alive. You know what I mean?
Dude, and you have the same mentality, because like when I just recently quit my old job to pursue a different job, and I was working with Mike before. We were in different capacities, working for different people, but we were working as a team in a sense, and like I took that to heart with him because like he was so helpful to me. But then after I quit, like 2 weeks go by, and I'm in like this pile of shit that I'm trying to dig out of, because there's this transitional phase, and I had some time off, and I was really diving into my family and spending more time with my kids and really enjoying it, because I never had that time, because for 8 years I was just working my ass off, and I had this like 9-day period of time where I was just like, that's all I cared about and that's all I wanted to do was be with them. And this guy calls me and goes, "What the fuck, man? Where you been? You haven't called me? You don't tell me you're quitting your old job?" And I loved it, because like it was like Mike calling me and going, "We're gonna be fucking friends. I don't care, man. Like where you go, like you're gonna still be my friend." And that's what I was like, and I loved it, man. Like I would love being called out by somebody that we created this bond and this friendship. And I loved when he called, because like there's not a lot of people that called me that I don't work with anymore that were like, "What the fuck, man? Where are you?" Because like I am in sales, so like when you're in the sales world, it's really weird because everybody just thinks that you want something from them.
Yeah.
When like I care about people's businesses. Like there's a lot of local love out here. One of my favorite things, and not to go off the subject, but like in the restaurant and bar industry, there's these huge liquor companies and there's huge corporate restaurants, and like it's like the stronger get stronger and the stronger get stronger. But what I really love in this community, this bar industry community that Sacramento's created, is like my friend opened a barbecue joint. I won't say where it was, but then 2-3 months after he opened, this corporate America barbecue joint opened up 2 places down. And then tried and true, his place is still open, the local guy, and this place is shut down. And it like drove this thought of community that I knew existed in Sacramento, where we're all on the same, rather than fighting against each other and thinking everybody else is competition.
Yeah.
We're working with each other, and like the local restaurant and bar owners here, everybody's friends. Everybody's in this community. They're not going like, it's the people that think that this is my competition and I don't want people to go there. No, like these guys are going to their businesses and supporting them too.
Why do you think that? I'm not in the restaurant industry. It seems rare.
It is rare.
Why Sacramento? Why did that go down? Why has that happened here? Like, do you have any theories on that?
I don't know, man. I've been in the industry. I've been in Sacramento for 22 years, going on 23, and I've been in the restaurant industry for 20 of it. And I worked at a corporate America. I worked at Outback Steakhouse for 9.5 years. And there was still a community vibe back then when I first started. We would all go meet at Mendango's Bar and Grill, which is, in the early 2000s, like sports bars were really, like these were the gathering places. But it was like, I was talking about the other day with somebody, it's like Tony Roma's, Outback, Chili's, Fridays, Buca de Beppo, Bandera, Piatti, like all these people worked on this strip on Howe Avenue. But at the end of the night, we all hung out together. And we, as this community, we were all working for these corporate America, like big time, like restaurant companies. And then as Sacramento evolved, a lot of us moved to Midtown, moved downtown, started working for the local owners that were, like brought up in like more of like a locally sustained restaurant or bar group. And from there, I just watched this community like thrive. And, to the point like, even sitting here in my wife's business, like totally just, you put a lot of things in perspective in my head when I was sitting here listening to you talk about your business and writing business plans. But why Sacramento is such a great community like that? I think it's the people that live here. I think that there's a lot of reasons that people that live here don't like Sacramento, or you know.
They're young and 19, and eventually.
But they're like really lame. They're really lame reasons, because I know why people stay here. It's because of the community. Like, I have really bad allergies, and it sucks leaving Sacramento because like it's the worst, one of the worst places to live in the world if you have allergies. But I love it here. It's my home. It's hot as shit out here, but that only lasts a few months. You know, there's it's a pretty clean place to live. You know, we talk about the homeless, population now. It's rising, and it's really, it's really sad to see. And I hope that us just even talking about it can like prove that maybe we can do something to help out. I feel like that's a big thing that a lot of people talk about, and like you're saying, nobody does anything about it. But I just feel like, to answer your question, right, I think the community is strong, and I feel like everybody can be successful with each other rather than working against each other. And that's what I see, in quote unquote sales. Like, I'm first and foremost in this restaurant industry, I'm a bartender, and my mentality is a bartender. Even though I'm selling booze now on the other side of the bar, I'm still doing the same things that I was doing behind the bar as a bartender. I'm still, the relationship matters to me with the people that I'm working with. I care that their business is successful. I don't want to just walk in someplace and sell something and walk out and not show up for 5 months. I'm pretty lucky now that I have a position where, I don't have to be gone for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I have a base of accounts that I could see on a really regular basis, and it's only a couple months in. I'm sure in 3 or 4 months they're going to be like, dude, why do I see you every week? But luckily for me, when I show up, they embrace me rather than shooing me away. But I think that just it's building those relationships and really caring. I think that's the biggest thing in this community is people actually really do care about each other.
That's what I'm most because I agree with you, and then I'm also well, why? Why is it different here than? And I haven't built a business outside of Sacramento, so I don't know other cities, but have friends that own businesses in other cities, and there's something rare, when they observe what's happening in Sacramento, and we're probably not going to find that answer here today, but
I have a theory.
Yeah, I would love to hear it. What?
Yeah, it's something I do contemplate because of the philosophy of fixing you, working on you, and how that translates. I think on a wider scale, the world we live in, or the perception of that world, comes a lot from the internet. The internet is our collective mind.
Totally. And
we just witness the information. None of it's really true enough unless you need it to be, right? So it's a conscious decision. And I think we have flooded the wormhole with the best we got. This is the best we got right now, and we're soaking it up. And a lot of it is coming across as isolating. There's a lot of pain that is being televised. There's a lot of trauma being televised, and there is also a voice that you can hear that says, "This is not good. Trauma is bad. You all have it. On some level, you all have trauma." And I think that's the message I've gotten personally, and I think it's pretty relevant to everybody.
Totally.
And I think consciously, as a species, humanity, in this society, this modern sort of setup we have, we're all catching on to something. And people like yourself, like Mark, like me, we can hear what's actually happening, and we know that the only way to combat the bad stuff is by focusing on the good stuff and then being an actor in that world.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's changing. That's why you see art pop up and say, this is fucking boring. We need to put some fucking art up. Somebody had the balls to come out and say it. Put some fucking pictures up. I'm tired of looking at this shit. All I see is homeless people in the alley. I'd at least like a nice picture on the wall. You know what I mean? Maybe that's one of
Shout out to Wide Open Walls. Thank you for making the scenery nice.
It's a step in the process.
Correct. Yeah.
You're totally in this reflection. I'm a never-ending puzzle that I have to unfold with myself, my patterns, childhood stuff, all the things. And I think we're seeing that collectively in the space,
Yes.
into like, we're even seeing it on a biological scale, male and females, into like the things of, Me Too movement that's coming out and very empowering, and then equally men standing up on some, other stuff. And it's like it's this reflection. I see it in my relationship with my partner, and her and I are learning boundaries with each other. Yeah. And then I look out into the world, I'm like, oh, we don't even realize we're collectively doing this right now. Yes. All the shit that's kind of in our little micro worlds is happening on a main scale. Yeah. And it can be very confronting, and it can be very, but it is, I sometimes am hesitant to use the reflection term, because I feel like it's like kind of sometimes it's a bypass for me of actually dealing with what's there, but it is truthful. Yeah. And it is, and I think, yes, that we are in this very much this collective.
Well, like we are living with our own algorithms, you know what I mean? Like, we grew up around what we grew up around. Like, the unique thing is that, like, I feel like we have a choice in what we do with that. And obviously, whoever caught wind of that first, it leaked out. And so now there's all of us. At some point, some monkey ate a mushroom and was like, hey. So, like, we're kind of the same still. Like, we still evolved. And, like, we think. Like, it's so funny when people say the world is going to shit. No, it's not. It's not. You just see a lot more. Yeah. That's it. Like, this shit's always been happening. You know what I mean? And, like, if you want change, like, if you want world peace, then you have to be world peace. Totally. You have to be there. You have to be consistent. You got to work on. Go to a fucking float tank before you say anything. And when you come back, we'll talk about it. You know what I mean? Like,
disconnect.
Yeah, we're catching wind of our metaphysical existence.
Totally. We're taking more self-responsibility. Like you said, like, we want to project onto the world. Why are we in that war? Why are we in that? Like, these are all conversations. I'm not saying don't have these conversations, but, like, we can't run from that bullshit anymore. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. And I look back at myself all the time. I get triggered when I have all my things that in the world that are happening that you can catch me on a moment and I'm spewing bullshit. Yeah. But it's like someone just can look back and be like, Ryan, what are you gonna do? Yeah. Like, this is doing nothing for this scenario right now. Yeah. And go get in a float tank. Yeah. Go. And it could be meditation, and it could be, hey, make the phone call to the person that you fucking said some mean shit to and say you're sorry and take some responsibility there. And it doesn't just mean sitting on a mat and being in meditation. That's important, but let's get honest too. Maybe it's a volunteer service that haven't done in 5 years. Like, let's do some action there. Yeah. Like, it can look very different, and we all need to get honest to what that action needs to look like in that time. But as we understand ourselves more, sometimes meditation is a bypass of actually doing the action. Yes. And like, but then there's that fine line of like, I'm action, but I'm kind of being resentful about my action. Well, maybe I need to go get in a float tank and like drop the resentment and then go do some stuff and talk to some people.
And work out your theories, man. And, do the weird things that you wouldn't really consider doing most of the time, which is, read a book or go put yourself in a space where it doesn't feel 100% safe in terms of what you're going to learn. Go give to the homeless. Mm-hmm. Go be next to it. It's scary, but just go be next to it. See what happens. You know what I mean? And like, just, I think advocating to your neighbors and your friends and the people you interact with, like, just don't be afraid to look at stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, don't get too quick to get angry. Look at stuff and then get a closer look. And it's 100%. Like, the more you get into that person's perspective or in their shoes, so to speak, like, you start to sort of like, we always do it, right? So like, we hear about a person, this guy's a fucking dick. You're gonna hate him. I hate him. He's a fucking prick, right? I fucking hate this guy. You meet him, you're like, I'm sorry. This is not, you had this in your heart, like you thought it was going to be this one way, but like now you've met the person. It happens every time. Justin Bieber's a fucking asshole. Most people that talk about him love him. Mm-hmm. Most people are like, I love the kid. He works hard. He deserves everything he has. It's like you said earlier, we don't know what fucking shit they've gone through. So to like throw rocks at people when you don't even know what the fuck is going on, or throw milkshakes at people, it doesn't fucking make sense. Like, it's not gonna accomplish what you think it is.
It's lazy.
Yeah.
To pass like critical like judgment of someone without a full. None of us have a full picture. Yeah. Even my parents that I probably know better than or my
people I spend the most time with, I have 1% view of actually what's going on. So the thing, let alone someone that I just walked on the street, I'm ordering a coffee from, and they said something to me that I thought was rude. They're a fucking ass. Like, whoa, like that is just the laziest perspective that we can have. And we do it all the time. It's human nature. Like I'm not immune from this.
Yeah.
But it's like, look back a bit, and then it gets catching it. Am I passing that along now? It's one thing for me to think that, and then but there's another thing to, hey, Mike's a fucking asshole. Like, and I start bringing people, like, that's where we need to catch ourselves. And, like, what's the ripple we're giving out?
Right.
We always have that moment to give a ripple of, if it's not going to be a net positive, like, do some processing with it.
Yeah.
Sure you want to share that? You sure you want to stir the fucking ocean up with that?
Yeah.
Like, just sit back.
In terms of realizing that it's like, it's me, I'm in the moment, I'm being a thing, and you don't agree with it. Like when you just accept that you are human and that you have processes, there are layers of your perception. It's not just one quick reaction and like you've got this antidote that you need to like give to somebody. It's literally like you see it and then it goes further behind the wall and then it's in there. And if you speak out of turn or you speak before you actually give it a second to like register, it's when you get yourself in trouble, and when you don't learn to like catch yourself, because it's not simple, it's ongoing, and it's something you consciously have to work on. The more you get good at it, or the more practice you have, the quicker you can catch yourself and inspire somebody. You're like, well, hold on, what about this? And then that person has to look at the truth. Totally. That's what we can do for each other. It's like, well, wait. It's like, think about, like, when somebody complains about their significant other, all she wants to do is this, she always does this. It's like, dude, but you're gone all day. Like, she just wants your attention. I mean, like, and then most people are like, I don't want to fucking think of it that way, because you just want to be angry, and I get it. Like, it's hard to keep up, but, like, I'm checking you so you can do that for yourself. And like that's what we can do for each other. That's
why that community it's so hard to see our own shit. Yeah, I got I'm in my own bubble. I got my own blind spots that whole world that I can't see. But a lot of people can see it.
Yeah.
And it's like, can I build the wherewithal to receive that from a loving person that's like, hey, like you might want to check, just throw it out there. Like, I don't know if this lands for you, but this is how you've been communicating. It's having an impact. You're getting frustrated with it. Yeah. Maybe you switch this up.
Yeah.
But like building that network that can come, but it's like a trust that everyone's doing their work. You can reflect it back.
Yeah, and learning that nothing's guaranteed. People make mistakes. People will tell you what they think you need, and that's fine. It's just the practice of looking at your own shit. And eventually, when you hear somebody bullshitting you, you'll recognize it because you'll be like, oh wait, that's your shit. That's not my shit.
When you tune it, it gets very loud when it's like, got it. Like you could hear everything behind the words with people.
Yes.
What's coming.
Yeah, and like, you're touching on building building on what you have going. Like that's what it is staying in that frequency and then being consistent. That's what happens. It's like, Jordan Peterson is all about cleaning your room in terms of keep your focus simple. And focus on the things you can control. And he lays it out as 12 rules, but it's like, this is a number you can handle. So there's a dozen things you can remember to do. And if you just do that, it will change your world. And then once you're on that other side, there's no denying, bro. You're like standing next to God and you're like, okay, I guess I can do this. You know what I mean? We need that faith in ourselves and in each other. And I'm on such a fucking high right now.
Hey, this kind of goes back to a conversation that Ryan and I had with some friends, I don't know, back in like September or October. We were sitting down, we were going to do a little like workshop together. And one thing that I took from Ryan that really kind of spoke to me was having these small victories, right? So you like put these like things that are almost laughable to attain and just getting those done, like very like simple, like, and so I think that spurted from that conversation. That went out to Nick, our boy Nick, who is a bartender in the area. Shout out to Nick, and now he's doing this like equal parts project with this just like two amazing bartenders here in Sacramento that are really trying to get this like work-life balance for people, and they started the Big Little Challenge or the Little Big Challenge. I can't remember what it is, but they're realistically putting these like very simple, like 29 days this month. It's February. 29 daily things that, you know, is just a very easy goal to attain per day, and trying to keep yourself accountable for it. You know, like, I don't know who's doing it out there, but you know, I'm trying to keep myself accountable for doing each thing every day. And it's just like, it goes back to like attaining these like really simple goals that is almost laughable. Like, but it goes back to this conversation we had like back in September. And I see that conversation that we had with Nick sprouting out into something that's bigger. And it's pretty amazing because like that's how our community works. And that's that ripple effect that we were talking about. Yeah. And seeing
we're so, our minds don't really grasp like real perspective. It's like, I always think of like, hey, can I do 1 degree a day? Like 1 degree, like, and that could be just, I'm going to spend 10 minutes less on my phone today. Yeah. Or I'm going to journal for 2 minutes. Yeah. You know, like these smallest, I'm going to sit and breathe for 30 seconds. Like things that are, like you said, laughable, like whatever that is to each of us. That 1 degree a day. 1 degree a day, if you were just going to keep going down and not do the 1 degree, you're going in the straight path that you're already going on. Life's going to be the same exact thing, different external, but the same exact, your life's predictable. 1 degree, what's that? 180 days, half a year, you're in the opposite direction. Yeah. You know, you're literally thinking of a boat just like going off 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree. You just stick to 1 degree a day. Yeah. Half a year, your life is going complete opposite of where you are now.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an analogy that I heard of being stargazers. Like we pick that star, and that's what we aim for. And it's a journey of all these zigzags. But you know, you find your way back. It's like there's all these turns, but they're all relevant. You have to hit those turns. Yes. You get to that star, then you find another star. you aim at that one, and like that process. I'm so like beyond myself with the door that's been opened, and you know, meeting you two, and you know, I want to do more with you. I don't know in what capacity, but I'll just fucking show up and be like, look what I got. Because I think that's probably the best thing, right? Man. So we'll do that. But I kind of wanted to like end this on a little story about what happened when I first got into the not the tank, but the actual room. Okay.
First time or second time?
Second time.
Okay.
This happened today. It's just like, I don't know, a message from God or something, or from the universe, or however you want to look at it. So I'm like getting ready. I messaged this friend of mine that I've been wanting to do an episode with. He confirms, like, it's good. It's a win. Put the phone down with pride. Start taking the clothes off, getting comfortable, look at the reflection in the mirror. I'm like, I see you, man. It's cool. I'm glad you're here. Because we're going to do this, you know? And I was having this moment, like just living it. And then my phone rings, and it's behind another screen as I'm like looking at something. I can't get to it. I'm like, ah! And finally, like, it fixes itself, and it's my son, my 10-year-old son, who's calling me. I said goodbye to him this morning, gave him a hug or whatever before I left. He asked me for it last night. He said, before you leave tomorrow, give me a hug. Yes, of course. So I go in his room, give him a hug, and here I am in the bathroom, and I'm thinking about him. He's one of the things, like any father, that I'm focused on. I want to do the right thing for him. And he calls me, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing a podcast today, bud. You know, I kind of told you about that. He's like, yeah, but what are you doing right now? I was like, I'm in the float tank thing. He's like, okay, cool. I just want to say I love you. I'm like, I was like, man, I can't tell you how, I told him this, I can't tell you how much that means to me. I love you too. I miss you. I'm going to hang out with you. Like, I'll see you later. He's like, all right, bye. And that was it. And that's what I had before I went into the tank. I'm telling you, man, if you don't believe in magic or whatever outside of us, like, you got to be crazy.
It just gets me so like present to just those small things that blossom into such bigger things. Yeah. Like, who even knows what your float would have been like? You know, we don't know. We don't know. It's all, but like just saying, hey, I love you, Dad. Yeah. Like how many I love you dads am I leaving on the table?
Yeah.
You know, where can I like step up my I love you dads, like in the daily, whether it's a little extra eye contact with someone, giving a smile, thanking someone, being grateful for things that I've done for myself, like just 100%. So thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I really do appreciate you. I appreciate you, Mark. I appreciate you, man. And I look forward to whatever else fucking comes along, man. I'm stoked. I'm trying to get healthy, feel healthy, and be healthy. Yeah, so.
Cool. It's been awesome.
Do you guys know, I mean, you're welcome to like plug your own stuff, but I plan on plugging you as well. I'll get some information from you and I'll tell everybody in my best voice, like, you better fucking check this shit out.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's we'll get a discount for the listeners on here.
Okay.
Plug that. Put that in there, and you had some floats, so I'll let you do the plugging.
Okay, yeah, we'll work on that, and maybe that'll be some fun. I wanna like translate my experience with your creation, and make that worth a broadcasting moment. That's what I want to do.
Dope.
Oh my god.
All I want to do is, I don't need to plug nothing except for saying, take the plug out of the ball, disconnect yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really just kind of give yourself some time to focus on you and your breath. And I mean, it'll change your whole environment around you and give you moments of clarity that you might not have had, make you a more positive person. And, it's great.
Love it. And if you're listening and you're uncomfortable with the float tank, that is totally normal. It's actually beautiful, and embrace that. And everyone's uncomfortable, a little nervous their first float.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. And really
Just
quickly,
let go.
Yeah, exactly.
Let go. All right.
Listen to some Sturgill Simpson. Just let go.
Sturgill.
Get your ass in there.
Cool.
All right, guys. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Ryan.
Well, everyone I ever meet goes here in this book. And now I met you, and you're going in the book.
I'm just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same. I'm just a